Hello, I'm Bryan Bishop, and this is Rally Point. This new show is dedicated to giving you up-to-the-minute information on the important topics affecting our veterans and their families, as well as offering our veterans and those who continue to serve a way to stay connected to our city, our Commonwealth, and the nation as a whole. Our show is an open discussion, and we welcome you to send us ideas that we might use in future broadcasts, as well as giving us comments on how the Department of Veteran Services here in Somerville is doing. On this, our inaugural broadcast, Rally Point is honored to have with us as our first guest, the Secretary of Veteran Services for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Secretary Francesco Urena. Secretary Urena is a veteran of the United States Marine Corps and has served as Director of Veteran Services for the City of Lawrence and the former Commissioner of Veteran Services for the City of Boston. He was appointed in 2015 by Governor Charlie Baker, and we are so proud to have him with us today. Welcome, Secretary Urena.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you so very much for having me as a guest to this show.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So tell us your story and what prompted you to become the Veterans Assistant Service Officer in Chief for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Well, thank you so very much, Brian, and what a great privilege it is to be on the show once again. You know, a decade ago, I came home from the Marines of May 2006. I never expected that in 10 years from that date, I'll be leading the Massachusetts Department of Veteran Services, the best department in the country when it comes to the way we treat our veterans. And it's not because I'm in the helm, it's because of veteran services officers just like yourself and 351 cities and towns and communities who have adopted this aspect of engaging and placing veterans first. I came home in 2006, as I mentioned, to a city of Lawrence that was underwater, the flood of 06. I started volunteering in the city, and it's something that I always engage with veterans, placing that sense of opportunity to take part of any given organization, learn about that type of organization. Not knowing that there was a veteran service officer in Lawrence, not knowing that there was a veteran service officer in every city town, my plan was to go to college, and I started volunteering in the city of Lawrence. 6 months later, I was still part of that volunteer crew, and I was offered the job permanently. And I started, I was the director for that city. 2 months later, Alex Jimenez, a young man who was captured in Iraq shortly after, was from Lawrence, and I became the spokesperson for that family, representing him and carrying the message for a long 14 months while we had hope. And sadly, we learned of his demise and that of Byron Fowdy from Michigan, who were found in a mass grave. We continue to represent the family, continue to bring sense of advocacy, but for that great work, I was honored that year as Veteran Services Officer of the Year. I completed my degree. I was invited to apply to Boston, where I had a few great people who were part of the team, you being one of them. And it's the aspect of that great work that we continue to do, and that aspect of bringing the community together. And it's the same mission that we continue to have in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and Department of Veteran Services, empowering those who see the people each and every day and trying to find new solutions for challenging problems ahead.
I have to say that one of the highlights of my career in service has actually was working with you in Boston. We did a lot of great things there, and I'm glad to see that that's continuing on into the Commonwealth as I've stepped up to be Commissioner of Veteran Services here in the city of Somerville. Two major topics affect our veterans that we hear a lot about these days, and that is veteran suicide and veteran homelessness. Right. When I was in Boston, we worked with Mayor Walsh and a lot of city, state, and federal agencies to eradicate veteran homelessness, get us to functional zero, and I could devote an entire show on what functional zero is. But being able to give veterans an opportunity to find housing, to bring them up to an acceptable level, because as we both know, veteran and homelessness should never be in the same sentence. What initiatives on the state level are available to our veterans, and what is the progress as we tackle these issues? How are we seeing veteran suicide, and how are we seeing veteran homelessness locally? We know that nationally 20 to 22 veterans a day take their lives, but what are we doing here in the Commonwealth that sets us apart, that's helping our veterans become housed and bringing them back from the brink, if you will, and giving them the services and the support that they need?
Oh, thanks so much, Brian. And the aspect of suicide is a national catastrophe. 100 to 116 Americans commit suicide each and every day. Out of those, 20 to 22, as you mentioned, happen to be veterans. We seem to be faring fairly well, and we can see that from our data here in Massachusetts. And I think it's an aspect of keeping veterans engaged, keeping veterans in the aspect of part of a community, part of somebody that could answer their sense of need when the time comes. Definitely the Veteran Suicide Hotline, but the Samaritan groups and many others who have placed that emphasis on suicide.
Right.
In the American population, but also for the emphasis among those 20 to 22 veterans. The breakdown in society and the aspect of socioeconomic when it comes to getting a job, the challenges of paying bills, the challenges of traumatic stress, and not just combat veterans. People who have served in the military are also vulnerable towards suicide. And so we must put that emphasis. So we're definitely working with our partners in mental health, places like the VA, who is a trusted source to be able to provide mental health and counseling to our veterans in need. Vet centers, places like Home Base and the Mass General Hospital program are some of the key partners that we have when it comes to the aspect of veterans talking and having those conversations early. We know that when somebody commits suicide, they have tried suicide 2 to 3 times before they're successful. And it's having those thoughts and not acting upon them, and how do we address that? When it comes to the aspect of homelessness, we do have a challenge on our hands, but because of the economy being in an upswing, we do see that the trends in homelessness are improving here in Massachusetts. We have 32 providers, places like New England Center and Home for Veterans, who have been adapting their mission. Some of the challenges that we have, just like Somerville has, is the aspect of affordable housing and bringing more diversity housing so that we could place veterans in the aspect of these opportunities for affordability, so that we don't have to push them out, again, in that breakdown, the socioeconomic aspects of their house fares and orders. And so we are placing good emphasis. We are keeping good rapports. We want to transition veterans from shelters the sooner we can. We place an aspect of incentives so that shelters transition veterans after 3 months, because the longer somebody stays in those confined walls of a shelter, the more institutionalized they become.
Outstanding. I think that we're seeing a lot of transition from shelters, transitional housing situations into permanent housing, and I think that's a great thing.
Sure.
As you know, and we've discussed this before, the number of veterans in our country is actually shrinking.
Correct.
We haven't had a draft since Vietnam. We have an all-volunteer force. Do you feel that outreach has become more important in the role of a veteran service officer than it ever has been? Because we are actually going out and targeting veterans who don't self-identify, veterans who don't basically want to have anything to do with it, but there are services and benefits for them out there. Do you feel that what is the most effective way that we can, as veteran service officers, we can outreach to our communities and to our veterans?
It has to be an all of the above approach, really, not one aspect. Using mediums such as local access television is definitely one way. The aspect of social media is another way. The aspect of printed media is another way. The aspect of coming out into the community and counting upon our neighbors to learn of you as a dedicated veteran service officer, the commissioner here in the city of Somerville, to be able to, when they know of a veteran or a veteran family in need, that they could pick up the phone, they could send you a message, and you obviously could go out and intercept in that aspect. We are the safety net here in Massachusetts, and that is what our veteran service officers do each and every day. And it is my job to empower you all to have the right sense of resources, to have the right sense of connections, and to continue to expand upon that safety net with nonprofits, which you have in and around this great city.
And I like to say that we actually incorporate all of those into veteran services with here in Somerville, and it's becoming very effective. With Veterans Day being next week,
Yes.
This is a basic question. How can we more effectively honor the service and sacrifice of our veterans and their families? We always talk about ceremonies, and we do all of these ceremonies, but there's a better way. And I think moving beyond that is a good deal. But how do you personally, as a veteran, how do you think we can more effectively honor the service and sacrifice of our veterans and their families.
Well, thanks much, Brian. As you know, static ceremonies are important. There's a certain sense of the way they have been a fabric of America and the fabric of us celebrating service. We should also be creative, and again, that is an aspect of all and above approach. While it is important to celebrate the service of the veteran, my aspect is to celebrate more of their successful reintegration back into our communities, allowing them, empowering them to be able to celebrate that first job, allowing them to celebrate their celebration of being able to purchase that home, whether it's with the GI Bill or any of the other programs that we have for veterans and families, being able to be successful in establishing roots in any city or town throughout our Commonwealth, engaging with our retirees, reminding them that here in Massachusetts we don't tax retiree pay, and that is a great incentive why you should move to Massachusetts and why you should remain in Massachusetts, because we have more sense of networks. Travel around outside of Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Maine, Rhode Island, you'll notice the deficit on the aspect of veteran services. It is not by chance that we have the systems in place that we have. To create those today will be nearly impossible. And so is the aspect of keeping responsible, trusted individuals, veterans taking care of other veterans. And again, in that aspect, the role of the veteran service officers not only to provide that sense of monetary assistance, but also that sense of celebration of service, and not just on November 11th, the whole month of November, as I call it, Veterans Month, and the aspect of the whole year, finding opportunities of engagement and finding opportunities how we could welcome a veteran back and how we could make them a successful member of our society.
Outstanding. I couldn't say it better myself. Final question. Game 7 tonight, Indians, Cubs. Who are you going for?
Yeah, I'm going for the Indians. And the reason why, yes, and the reason why I'm going for the Indians, I think just like we were faced with a curse, I think they have a curse on their hands or feel that they haven't won for quite some time. So I'm really rooting for that. You know, it's a tied game, but I'm excited. And it gives a good opportunity.
Well, the Cubs have a curse too. But Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your service, and look forward to seeing you really soon.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you very much,
And
sir.
to all of our veterans, happy Veterans Day.
Thank you, sir. Coming up next, he served in the Coast Guard, but he came home, became homeless, jobless, and felt very alone. We're going to talk to our Veteran Spotlight for this month, Jake Shaps, who's now, we're happy to say, housed and one of the newest employees of the city of Somerville. All of this when we come back. I'm Bryan Bishop, Commissioner of Veteran Services for the City of Somerville, and I'm joined here today by Chief of Police Dave Fallon and members of our city government, also veterans, part of our fire department, our first responders, and we're here today to bring awareness to a very important issue. 20 to 22 veterans every day commit suicide, and during Suicide Prevention Month, which is September, we came together to work together to be the strength of those who really need our help and support. So we say now, 22 push-ups in honor of those individuals who've taken their lives. Take a moment and think about someone that you may know who may need our help. Thank you very much, and continue to honor our veterans, their service, and their sacrifice. Somerville loves you.
If you are a veteran or know of a veteran in crisis, please contact the Veterans Crisis Line at 1-800-273-8255 and select option 1 or call 911. Our veterans have served us. Now it's our turn to serve them.
But it's so good to be here with you today as we talk about what? What do we talk about today? We talk about Veterans Day, right?
During the week of Veterans Day, Veterans Commissioner Bryan Bishop visited several elementary schools in Somerville to begin the Veterans Classroom Project. This bold new initiative is designed to educate our young people as to the importance of service to our city, Commonwealth, and nation.
Today we learned about our heroes, a really special kind, the ones who serve America and leave their homes behind. We read about the veterans.
The commissioner read a great
book
entitled Veterans, Heroes in Our Neighborhood. This story speaks of ordinary people in our community that also served in our armed forces. The students were engaging and asked a lot of questions. Some were quite comical at times. But the most important message was that no matter if you serve in the military or become a police officer, firefighter, teacher, or merely a good friend, it is important not to only serve ourselves, but to serve each other.
There are family,
This is an ongoing program.
neighbors,
If you would like to be a part of the
friends who
Veterans
never
Classroom
boast or brag,
Project,
we
contact
all
us here
should
at
be
Rally
reminded
Point
of their
or the
love
Somerville
for
Office of
home
Veteran
and
Services
flag.
at veterans
Is it-
at
like our flag back there?
somervillema.gov.
Does everyone say the Pledge
And
of Allegiance
remember,
every morning?
highlighting our veterans honors the past, but engaging our children
The man in
strengthens
town
the
who cuts
future.
our hair is known as Frank the Barber. And welcome back to Rally Point. Veterans face many challenges as a result of the service to our nation, but one startling challenge is a reintegration back into civilian life. In many cases, they find it difficult to find employment, housing, and the mere camaraderie they enjoy as service members. Many of these issues lead to depression and loneliness, with veterans not knowing where to turn. Our Veterans Spotlight this month focuses on a former member of the United States Coast Guard who found himself in that very situation. Jake Shaps found himself in Somerville homeless, unemployed, and alone. But his story has a happy ending, as many of them don't. Rally Point is proud to have with us today Jake Shapp. Jake, welcome to the show.
Brian, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So I guess what we want to talk about is, tell us your story. What brought you to Somerville? Why here? Because I don't think you're originally from here.
I'm not originally from here, Brian. I'm actually from New York. I found myself not going anywhere in life where I wanted to go out of New York. I found myself hanging out with people who were going down some bad roads. I packed up everything I had, and I heard that there was a shelter out here in Somerville. And I've got on a bus from New York one day and found myself here. That was 3 years ago, actually, Brian. 3 years ago, I got off that bus from New York and I found myself at the Boston Aquarium bench. That was my home. I slept on a bench, got cold, snow started falling, and I needed to move inside. First step in the venture was doing a shelter for homeless veterans over at Court Street in Boston. I tried to live there, but it was not very easy. I found myself tangled up, making bad decisions, and I needed to find myself something better. After leaving New England Veterans Shelter, Court Street, I went out to Somerville, Massachusetts, because I'd heard there was a place called North Street. North Street is Mass Bay Veteran Center. There, I was worried to be in the same situation as Court Street. I thought it'd be another homeless shelter. It wasn't. It was definitely a transitional center where they make your goals very clear. They allowed me to, in the course of 4 months, find a job, find an apartment, be where I am right now. I mean, I have a one-bedroom apartment in Somerville. I have a team that still stays by my side. I've got a therapist. I have all the support I could possibly ask for. I've got a really good job that I get to start soon. I'm actually working here with this city. They gave me a chance and an opportunity.
Well, that's outstanding. So tell me a little bit more about the Mass Bay Veteran Center. Now, of course, being the commissioner, I'm well aware of, from the external side, what they do there. Now, I am aware that North Street is run by the Volunteers of America, which is a nonprofit organization who does a lot of work with the VA. But living in that environment, we know it's a transitional housing for people coming out of VA programs such as substance abuse and whatnot. You didn't have those problems. So what was it like being thrust into a situation where you were with those individuals day in and day out? And how did it help you to reflect on your life of where you were and where you were headed and where you are right now sitting in that chair?
It definitely opened my eyes to realizing that even though I didn't have an alcohol problem, even though I didn't have a drug addiction, I was no better than anyone else there. I was still homeless. I still had nowhere to go. I still needed help. Right. And they needed help too. And at the same time, I was able to see what would happen if I was to turn to drugs, what would happen if I turned to alcohol. But what I really liked about North Street was, in the morning times, you couldn't sleep in. There's no one's rapping at your door saying, get up, lights on. But it was, hey, you have a meeting to go to, and we're gonna work on finding you a place to live today. It was a place where you didn't have to worry about having any money for food. There was always something to eat. I mean, the neighborhood does a cooking thing where every single week a restaurant or a group cooks meals for the people who live there. There's a kitchen, and the veterans who live there don't just cook for themselves. They realize that they all need help. Oh, nice. Every once in a while, there'll be meals where the guys will get together, throw in a few dollars that they have, and they'll cook a meal for everybody. And even if you don't have any money, they'll still get a plate for food. And the best thing about North Street compared to Court Street or Pine Street Inn or any other homeless shelter that I've had to go stay in, is you have safety, security. You have a personal password for your door. No one's coming into your room and stealing from you. Your stuff is safe, and you feel safe the whole time there. And I guess that's one of the biggest challenges of being there, is you feel so safe you don't want to leave. But eventually, like all places, you have to move on and transition out.
Absolutely. Now, our interaction was you came to our office looking for help, looking for benefits. I remember that day. I remember it very vividly when you walked into our office. And the one thing that I noticed too is there's more and more young people. I mean, you're under 30 who are needing these services and needing this assistance. Give our audience an idea of how you can best serve yourself if you're in those situations.
I think the best thing to do is ask questions, Brian. I mean, you hear about all these benefits. You hear about Chapter 115. You hear about healthcare. And you hear all these things that you're owed or entitled to. But there's really nobody there to guide you to get these entitlements. No one's going to fill out the forms for you. No one's going to submit the applications. And you can't get approved unless you apply for anything in this world. But what I really liked about your office and with North Street was they explained them to me. You sat down with me that day and you said, this is Chapter 115. It's not free for you, but it's something you're entitled to. And all we ask in return is you try to find yourself a job. You don't just give up and collect a disability check. You see what else is out there. Give me more options. And from that, I was able to get my feet where they need to be. I paid my rent on time. I found an apartment. And then when I found a job, I had to say goodbye to Chapter 115, which was the hardest part. But it was just really nice to know there's something there for you. It's not a, hey, you're a veteran, welcome home, good luck. It was, hey, you're a veteran, let's find you a home and let's find where you want to go now.
Right. And this is your home. Somerville is your home now, and you just don't have to be on Chapter 115 to come to my office.
No, I know.
The coffee pot's always on, and Miss Kathy's always there with a smile. So you're housed now, and that was as a result of being at North Street. So you're still living in the building, but you're in what we call the permanent party floor. Yeah. You got some really good news recently as far as your employment goes, because you lost your job at the job that you had because physically you couldn't do the work anymore.
I couldn't.
But what are you going to be doing?
I'm actually getting an opportunity as a junior clerk at the Parking Enforcement Agency for the City of Somerville.
And that is one thing that I want to tell everyone, that Somerville loves its veterans. And Jake is a prime example of how Somerville reaches out to our veterans to ensure that they are not left behind, because everyone knows that every one of our veterans have served, and now it's time for us to serve them. Jake, thank you so much. Thank you for your service. And we're coming up on Veterans Day, so I'll say it early. Happy Veterans Day.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you so much. Just another wonderful example of veterans getting things done here in Somerville. We're going to go now and just leave you with a thought that when you're walking down the street and you see a veteran or you come in contact with a veteran, thank them for their service. Because it takes a lot to voluntarily raise your right hand and take an oath to swear to the Constitution of the United States of America. And it's always nice when you come home for someone to walk up to you and pat you on the back and say, thank you very much for your service, because we really do enjoy our freedoms here. And Somerville is an all-American city, and we take care of our veterans. For all of us here at Rally Point, this is our first broadcast coming to an end. We'll see you very soon. And as I said before, our veterans have served us. Now we serve them. Thank you.